Welcome to the Storytime channel. My name is Steven and we have some pro-revenge stories. Our first story of the day is by SpongeBob No Pants. Live in a rental for over a year without paying rent? Good luck in jail. Last summer, I bought a house trailer and decided to rent it out. It needed some work, so I posted 2 months free rent for putting carpet down in the living room, hooking up the hot water heater, and putting in a toilet. Got a nice couple with a newborn willing to do it. Great, no lease, month to month, no security deposit, and the rent was $450 a month. So they did the work, so I didn't ask for rent for 2 months. Everything was fine. Side note, there are a few little state laws that come into play. If you don't pay rent for 3 consecutive months, you are considered a squatter, which means the landlord doesn't have to fix the property and can actually padlock it and deny you entry. If you're on house arrest and get formally evicted, you could be violated for it. Also, you can be formally evicted even if you have already moved out, so the landlord can get rent due. Also, even though there are eviction bans, if it happened before the ban, then it can still go through. Plus a few other conditions that still allow someone to be evicted. It's up to the judge, really. Fast forward 5 months and still no rent money. Yes, they had a newborn and they were young and didn't have a lot of money, but the husband can spend $1,500 on a new engine for his project car. They can afford to go out to eat and spend money on electronics, but no rent. So after the 3rd month, I did nothing. The weather was turning cold, I didn't put in the furnace like I promised, and if they hadn't had a newborn, I would have padlocked the house. They were bragging about their tax refund. I gave them a shot to catch up, and they basically said they knew their rights and were in a rent strike. Illegally, I might add, you will see later. COVID happened, husband got laid off, so I gave them a break. When he went back to work, I asked for back rent again and was told to freak off. I finally had enough. I told them they had 14 days to get out or I was doing a formal eviction, and seeing he was on house arrest, he knew what that meant. I honestly was trying to keep him from having to go back to jail and keep an eviction off of their record. I was trying to be nice and civil. So they left and I cut my losses until I checked my property. Everything they put in, they removed. Everything they got free rent for was gone. I got pissed and filed for a formal eviction. It didn't go as they hoped. They said I didn't provide heat, so they went on a rent strike. Only they didn't file that with the courts or hold the money aside. They just thought they could stop paying rent. What they put into the trailer was less than the rent. The judge agreed with me that seeing they took everything, I was due those 2 months' rent. And the biggest. He started slamming my character, so I said, well, you didn't tell me that you were going to be on house arrest when you rented the property. Before then, the judge looked bored, but he perked up. He asked them if that was true, they responded that it was, and he was ready to make his ruling. I received 15 months back rent at $450 a month and $2,000 in damages because the way they removed the stuff, they damaged a lot of things. As for him, the judge said he had no choice but to turn the eviction over to his parole officer. Fast forward to this month, his house arrest was violated and he was arrested. They actually had the nerve to ask me to speak on his behalf. I didn't. Ruling was his remaining 6 months are now spent in jail. They have a bad eviction on their record, and they owe me money. Know the law before you play the game. So if you were renting a place and the first 2 months were free if they did these installations, and they did, but then the 3rd month went by and they didn't pay you, but you do know that it's getting cold, they have a newborn, and you didn't put in any of the extra stuff you promised because they didn't pay, would you have been a little bit more pushy about getting that money, or would you have done the same thing OP did and eventually lead to this 5-6+ month ordeal? Let me know in the comments down below. Our next story is by ElectroBonuzz. I'm not gonna pay for your comfort. This happened last month. By some universal coincidences, me and my girlfriend ended up living with another couple in a rented house to split costs. It was a big house, so each couple would have their own bathroom, bedroom, and we shared the common places like the kitchen and the living room. The house was originally rented by a coworker who, by the time of this story, was no longer in the house anymore, but all the furniture was his and he gifted it all to me when he left. The other couple was really annoying. They would leave their dirty dishes in the sink with rotten food and only wash them until the weekend, or leaving their dog to poop all over the house. One time the guy was cooking in a torn out shorts and his underwear was very visible. This was really uncomfortable to my girl. Anytime I talked to them about all the issues that bothered us, they used to change their habits for a few days and then it was all the same. But the house was rented and they arrived first, so I wasn't able to kick them out. And if I tried, I was afraid of the guy since he was a bad-tempered a-hole. The last straw was this summer. It was really hot and these jerks liked the AC at full blast day and night even when they weren't home. And if I turned it off, they would get mad and immediately turn it on after telling me how they could not sleep without the AC at max. Okay, I did my best to wear a hoodie and sleep with my winter clothes in the middle of the freaking summer inside the house, just so they would be comfortable and for the sake of saving a few bucks in rent money. And of course, the inevitable happened. The electric bill came in and it was 4 times higher than the usual, and it was a lot. So I talked to them about how their use of the electricity was out of control and why we should split the bill 25/75 since me and my girl are almost never home. It turned into a huge fight and his only argument was that we all use the electricity so we should all pay the same. He wouldn't listen to my arguments and there was nothing I could do. I ended up paying the same amount. After this jerk and his girlfriend made me pay for their comfort, they started doing a lot of passive-aggressive stuff, like throwing out my unspoiled food while they would leave their rotten food on my fridge, or using their TV at the highest volume while I tried to sleep. I get up really early to exercise before work, so I go to sleep really early. And a lot of things like that in a very childish manner. In addition of still leaving on every kind of electrical device in the house while they were out. Then I knew I had to get out of that house. There was no money saving anymore due to the high costs of the bills, so me and my girlfriend started to look for a place for only the 2 of us and our 2 rescued dogs. We found an affordable and comfortable house with plenty of room for our dogs, so we pulled the trigger. We talked to the owner of the previous house about us leaving and he had no problem at all, so it was all set. We waited until the other couple were out of town for the weekend and took every last thing we owned out of that house and moved out. I left them without any furniture. I mean, no stove, no microwave, not even a table to eat in. I left my keys at the entrance of their bedroom door and a note that said, "We couldn't bear your attitudes anymore, so we left with our belongings. Have a nice life, wasting your own money, OP." The owner of the house, which became a very good friend of mine later, told me that they told him how I took out all of their belongings. He knew that they were mine and told them. I wish I was there to look at their faces. Have fun eating fast food on the floor, a-holes. These people kind of checked off all of the boxes on bad roommate material. It's only fitting that at the very end, they basically took everything out of there that they were allowing them to use and left them with basically nothing to wallow in their filth and their just bad ways. I'm sure the couple didn't stay there very long after they had to shoulder that entire AC bill, which is ridiculous. Our next story is by MaxTitanium. Sharing is caring, and Karen ain't caring. One day, I was walking through City Market with my mom, the quiet buzzing of the lights only slightly annoying. All seemed well, and I decided to get one of the sample cookies from the back. Seems perfectly normal, right? So I grabbed my cookie, which happened to be the last non-burnt one, as another family is coming into the back aisle. I'm not a particularly social person, so I started to walk away. This family consisted of a mother and son, the son being maybe 5 or 6 years old by my estimates, wearing a vibrant and disgusting shade of yellow. The mom had a typical Karen haircut and a bland red-colored sweater on over a bright white shirt and brand new looking skinny jeans. That didn't sound like a good time to me. They realized that there aren't any more non-burnt cookies, which, in my opinion, shouldn't be a problem. Cookies are cookies, especially free ones. The child wails horrifically and notices that my cookie, that I haven't yet taken a bite out of, wasn't burnt. Wonderful observation skills, little Timmy. The mom approaches me and asks in a sickly sweet tone, one you can tell is obviously faked, if I would mind giving my cookie to her kid. I wasn't sure if the tone was from her having a headache from dealing with her kid or if she wasn't a nice person, but seeing as the kid was young, I chose to be nice and broke my cookie in half, offering one of the halves to the kid. Because I wasn't about to miss out on eating my cookie, nor was I about to go grab another one, as I felt it would just be rude to the next people. The kid looked confused at this, which immediately felt off. The mom's face contorted from nice to confused to offended very quickly, as if not offering the entire cookie had somehow forsaken her entire family, and she stared at me like I was going to sacrifice a goat in order to curse them. I, naturally, was confused and realizing what was happening a bit too late, backed away and tried walking away. The lady placed her hand on my shoulder, preventing me from walking away. I was maybe 12 at the time, so I was a small boy. She held out her other hand as if expecting me to just hand my cookie away. Let me once again state that I had tried to share, but Karen and her little hex spawn don't seem to understand the concept of sharing, evident by the atrocious wailing the child was releasing from the depths of the underworld itself. I hate the sounds of children crying. I managed to pull away from the iron grasp from this lady and speed walked away. The guttural released from both her and her entitled child gave me the chills, and she marched up to me and tried to take the cookie from me. Before she could, a light bulb flickered on before bursting in my head from the excitement to see the next levels of rage and profanities my plan was about to induce. I stuffed the entire cookie in my mouth. Now, these cookies were fairly big, bigger than the basic sugar cookies they usually give, so my mouth was stuffed. For a moment, Karen and her child are silent, stunned at what they had just witnessed. 10 seconds later, the gates of heck are ripped from their hinges. Karen exploded at me, screeching profanities at me, many of which I surprisingly hadn't heard before. I stood there, the smuggest grin on my little face as I slowly chewed on the cookie, continuing to rub salt in the wound until the profanities turned into indiscernible noises. Was it wrong of me to do so? Probably. Do I regret doing so? Absolutely not. After maybe 3 minutes of random sounds ejecting from the deep, dark chasm this woman produced, she stopped to take a breath. I had swallowed the cookie by now and was getting tired of listening to the white noise this lady was projecting, so I began to walk away. "I'm not done with you," she yelled after me. Obviously, I chose to ignore her at this point as I was just done with her. As soon as I was out of the aisle, I booked it back to my mom and continued on like nothing happened. So OP said in this story, was it wrong of me to do so? I don't think it's wrong of OP at all to eat the cookie like that. They got the cookie, they were there first. It was kind of them to even offer the half of it. It was all entitlement from the other people. And OP learned something today. Some new curse words. And our final story of the day is by Reckless Raven 3, who has the stuffed shells. A few years ago, I received WIC checks for my children. Not sure if it varies by state, but in my state, each check is one transaction. So essentially you can have 5 or 6 transactions while using them. So I go to ShopRite, it's evening and very busy. I wait in a line of 4 people. Finally my turn comes and it was taking a while. I had 4 or 5 checks, can't remember. So some rude lady starts berating me. She's 2 people behind me. She goes on and on saying how it's rude that I didn't tell her that I had all different transactions. Loudly, mind you. Also, please keep in mind that every line was long. So I tell her to mind her business and wait her turn like an adult. She keeps going so badly her husband walks outside. So here's for the revenge. I worked at a local pizza restaurant at the time. One evening, shortly after this incident, that lady comes in with a large group that happens to be one of my regulars. I wasn't waiting on them, but I know she recognized me. I saw her whispering to my regular and looking at me. I know she was telling her about the ShopRite line situation. So I told the server she had to let me know when the food was coming out, and asked the server what she ordered. And I told the server the whole story. And she agreed to let me serve her food. Now please note, I did not mess with her food. but the look on her face as I walked to the table with the food was priceless. Even better, as I said, who had the stuffed shells, and I placed that dish in front of her. And she looked horrified. I didn't mess with her food, but oh, she thought I did. She barely ate her meal. Mwahaha. You gotta love it when it's chalked up to them only being able to speculate what might have happened. And they can't call you out on it because it's ridiculous to assume that they would mess with your food. I mean, they can, but it will cause a whole scene and it will lead to nowhere because obviously OP didn't. It was all intimidation and it worked out beautifully. But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. So if you had a favorite story of the day, let me know which story and why in the comments down below. But besides that, if you enjoyed the video, please consider giving it a like and subscribe if you haven't. Also, please consider turning on notifications so you'll never miss an upcoming video too. No matter what you did, whether it was viewing the video, liking, commenting, subscribing, thank you all so very much for supporting the Storytime channel. Every little thing that you guys do helps the channel grow more and more every single day, and I appreciate the heck out of it. I hope you all have a great day, and I'll see you all next time right here.